Good morning. I want to talk a little bit now about how the upcoming lunar month from October 14th through November 13th is going to impact America in particular. So let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay, I just need to make a couple of adjustments before I start. So bear with me for a second. And I'm ready to go. So this month is going to be a little bit more intense because this lunar month begins with the solar eclipse, and midway through we have a lunar eclipse. So I've titled this America Eclipsed, mid-October to mid-November 2023. Now, first off, the chart that I generally use for America is this July 1776 chart for the passage of the Resolution for Independence. Okay, now with a assumed birth time of about 11:50 a.m., some use 12 noon, that results in Libra rising. But in a lot of mundane charts, uh, we're not always that certain about the birth time, so quite frequently I like to set these up as 0 degrees Aries rising charts. So that's what I've done here. And if you want to examine this chart in a little bit more detail, you can hit the pause button and see what we have here. But anyway, this is going to be the chart that I use for America when I'm looking at transits and how they will impact America. All right, I have a few charts here showing the hard aspects, the soft aspects, the end conjuncts, and also midpoints that will be activated by transits. And our period is going to be from about mid-October through mid-November. So I've put a green rectangle around that period. And over here, I've put some rectangles around those aspects that we want to keep an eye on. And one of the most prominent things going on this fall is that we have another near conjunction of transiting Pluto with natal Pluto. Okay, it's not going to be exact, but it lasts throughout most of the fall. It's been in effect already, and it will be in effect throughout this upcoming lunar month, throughout all the eclipses. And the eclipses make everything a little bit more intense. Now, with transiting Pluto, almost conjunct natal Pluto, that brings about some rebelliousness, threats to our existence, existential threats to democracy. So we're dealing with that throughout this period, and we have seen some of that this time around with the rebelliousness in the U.S. House of Representatives. Speaker McCarthy was just very recently voted out of office, and there's a certain amount of chaos going on there. Also, we had Pluto briefly in the sign of Aquarius this year, then it retrograded back into Capricorn, where it will stay throughout the fall. Then back in January, it's finally going to get into Aquarius again, where, except for a very brief retrograde back into Capricorn later in 2024, we're going to pretty much have Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years. And that signals a transfer of power from individuals to the people. And we've gotten a taste of that, some foreshadowing of that in America with all the recent strikes that have been going on. That's about returning power back to the people. So, uh, rebelliousness among the people, it's foreshadowing some of what to expect with Pluto and Aquarius, that transfer of power back to people. And it's also causing some of the political chaos we're seeing right now. So, our democracy is still going through some struggles, but I'm seeing signs that people are really getting tired of all this constant infighting and struggle, and they want to get back to the center. They want to get back to compromise. So, in that respect, things seem to be getting a little better. Now, the other thing which is going to be going on that lasts the entire month is we have the transiting lunar nodes making squares to uh, natal moon and natal Mercury. And this is just sort of intensifying things throughout the month. We also have uh, the lunar nodes making, well, the north node is going to be making a semi-square to natal Uranus, which means that the south node is making a sesquiquadrate to natal Uranus. And this is also stimulating a little bit of rebelliousness and revolution, desire for independence. Uh, all in all, the impact of the lunar nodes on America this month from mid October to mid November is just to make everything a little bit more intense. So you might find it a little bit more difficult to relax and unwind. We also have transiting Saturn making a sesquiquadrate with natal Saturn throughout this period. Aspects like semi-squares and sesquiquadrates, they're sort of turning points or breaking points, if you will. This is where you can have the straw that broke the camel's back. And Saturn is all about regulation, but also restriction and frustration. So there can be a little bit of frustration that people are feeling in this month. And we also, down here, we have Uranus making a semi-square to Jupiter that's lasting throughout the month. Natal Jupiter is in Cancer, where the Sun is in this chart that I'm using for America. And Cancer is all about security and family and the home. Uh, Uranus, transiting Uranus, is in Taurus, which has a lot to do with finances and resources. Uranus can be sudden disruption, and we've certainly seen disruptions uh, to the US stock market quite a bit lately, and that's has to do with Uranus making some other aspects also. But throughout this lunar month, financial concerns uh, may make people feel insecure. Okay, so those are kind of the tensions that we're going to be dealing with throughout this lunar month that goes from mid October to mid November. We're still struggling with our democracy, rebelliousness in government, various threats. We have frustrations going on. Things seem a little bit more intense. We have financial concerns that are making us feel insecure. On the other hand, there's also going to be some good stuff going on. And I like to point out from time to time that uh, these astrological aspects, it's not like combining cold water with hot water and getting lukewarm water. Instead, it's more like a tossed salad. You got the good stuff just sitting right next to the bad or the tense stuff going on. Okay, so if we look at the good aspects, the easy aspects, for this lunar month that will be affecting us. We got Neptune sextile moon, Neptune trine natal Mercury, natal transiting Uranus, making a trine to natal Neptune, transiting Saturn, making a trine to natal Venus, transiting Jupiter, making a sextile to the natal Sun. And the orb that I'm using for all these aspects is 2 degrees. So we see Neptune involved with a lot of these good aspects. That is going to be compassion and vision that people will be experiencing. So even as we're going through various squares and oppositions that we just talked about, there are going to be some people out there with vision, uh, working to make things better. There are going to be people out there with compassion, trying to implement uh, better ways of doing things, more compassionate ways of governing. And with Saturn making a trine to Venus, this will offset some of the frustration. This suggests some steady building and construction going on. And with Jupiter making a sextile to natal Sun throughout most of this lunar month, this is going to be some growth, bring about some growth, expansion, and some luck to the country. So, in spite of the tensions going on, I think we're still going to be moving forward in various ways. Uh, we're going to be chugging along, having some growth, uh, steady construction of things, and many people are going to be trying to implement their visions. Many people are going to be trying to make this a more compassionate country. All right, if we look at semisextiles and quincunxes, we call those inconjuncts. Those are aspects which require adjustment, and hence they tend to bring about change. Okay, so let's see which of these is going to impact us the most. Well, we start the lunar month at the tail end of this inconjunct between transiting Jupiter and natal Saturn. Normally, I wouldn't pay much attention to it because it's dying, it's fading, but it's still going to be there at the solar eclipse, which begins this lunar month. And that's going to make it a little bit more intense, give it a little bit more strength. We've had transiting Jupiter in Taurus, which has to do with resources, financial matters. Saturn in Libra. Saturn has to do with restriction, regulation. Libra, sign of other people. And so this has represented some of the latest budget fighting that's been going on in our government. Uh, on the one hand, there are those who want to expand, uh, rightly or wrongly, expand spending and use of government resources. And it's been running into difficulty with those who want to contract that spending and use of government resources. And we're on the tail end of those budget battles for now, but because it's still going to be there at the eclipse, that sets a tone for the next month. And uh, this aspect will be fading, but there are going to be others coming into prominence, which could signify wounding through budget battles. Now, an interesting thing we have here is transiting Uranus, making a semisextile to natal Chiron, which is in Aries, but transiting Uranus is also going to be making a semisextile to natal Mars, which is in Gemini. And those aspects are going to last for a good part of this lunar month. One of the things this tells us is that you can see that uh, natal Mars in Gemini and natal Chiron in Aries, they make a sextile to one another. Okay, that's going to be a harmonious aspect. And this sort of energizes our search for individual spirituality and our recognition of the dignity and spiritual worth of every individual. Since Uranus is going to be making a semisextile to both of them, it's getting close to the midpoint between natal Chiron, and natal Mars. And that just makes this aspect all the more powerful. Again, the orb I'm using here is 2 degrees. When we look at midpoints that are being activated, I use a 1 degree orb there. And we don't get within 1 degree of that midpoint until right at the end of this lunar month. Nonetheless, we're probably going to be feeling some effects, and this could work out in a good way. Uh, the planet Uranus, its creativity, its sudden, unexpected changes in things, flashes of enlightenment. So there could be people who are experiencing uh, these epiphanies and individual spiritual awakening. And that would be a good thing. I certainly hope it uh, works out in such a way. Again, the semi-sextile as the quincunx, it's an aspect of adjustment. It usually means adjustments have to be made, changes have to be made, and any changes that occur here, they're going to be rather sudden. Okay. With Uranus and Taurus, it might be financial or resource things which trigger some changes in the way people think about things individually. All right. Other thing we're going to have that I'm going to keep an eye on is transiting Jupiter, making a semi-sextile to natal Uranus, which is in Gemini. Transiting Jupiter is going to be in Taurus. And again, uh, concerns about finances and resources uh, may trigger some adjustments, some creative adjustments that have to be made. Uh, the nicest thing that could happen here would be scientific breakthroughs. Since Uranus is in Gemini, Gemini rules the mind, creative thinking. That would be very nice. Uh, this will last from around the beginning of November, peak right after the beginning of the next lunar month. And we'll just have to sort of keep an eye on this, see what happens, see what makes the news. Hopefully, it will be some good stuff. All right, if we look at midpoints, which are going to be activated, we see this one, which is going to be in effect for quite a while. Uh, Transiting Chiron is going to be conjunct the Jupiter-Pluto midpoint, becomes exact on, let's see, it looks like this is November 7th. Jupiter is expansion, uh, Pluto is power, but Chiron often causes wounding. So one wonders exactly what kinds of woundings we might experience here. It might be leaders with power that are going to be the recipients of this sort of wounding. It might be political wounding of some sort or another. But overall, one thing I want you to notice here is how often Chiron and Mars uh, are going to be involved in these activated midpoints during this lunar month. And also Pluto, which is sort of like Mars on steroids. Pluto is a planet of death and transformation. So let's see what we have. We've got Chiron, 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 Chiron. And let's see, we also have Mars, Mars, Pluto, Mars, Pluto, Mars, Mars, Pluto, Mars, 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 and Mars. This is a lot of Chiron and Mars and or Pluto. So this suggests there is a lot of heightened potential for wounding of various sorts this month, and also violence, aggression, and threats of one sort or another. When it comes to wounding for the country, this often manifests in political terms and sometimes lately in climate change uh, terms. And with Mars and Pluto also being involved, there could be more violent rhetoric and perhaps even more physical violence, mass shootings, that stuff, that sort of thing going on. So we can anticipate a heightened risk for those sorts of things during this month. Now, I have some other midpoint configurations here with a dotted line around them rather than a solid line, and that is because they're really going to take an effect right at the beginning of the next lunar month, beginning in mid-November. But notice that these midpoints that I have this dotted border around, most of them are going to be exact on November 17th. We have uh, the transiting Mars Neptune midpoint conjunct natal moon exact on the 17th, transiting Mars Neptune opposite natal Mercury exact on the 17th, transiting Mars opposite the Venus Chiron midpoint exact on the 17th, transiting Mars conjunct the Neptune Pluto midpoint exact on the 17th. So that's a lot of Mars energy, some Chiron energy, also Neptune and Pluto energy. Whatever's going to happen, it's going to be most intense on November 17th. So keep an eye on that date. Uh, we might have some violence occurring on or near this date. We just have to keep an eye on it. Now, the other thing included in this dotted rectangle is Uranus being conjunct with the Mars Chiron midpoint. I was just talking about Uranus making semisextiles to Mars and semisextiles to Chiron with a 2-degree orb throughout most of the month. We don't get within 1 degree of that midpoint until pretty much right at the beginning of the next lunar month. So this is going to be ongoing. We may feel some effects from this month, but it starts to get more intense in the next lunar month, and I think this contact with the midpoint becomes exact in December, if I'm not mistaken. But again, as far as midpoints go, a lot of Mars stuff, a lot of Chiron stuff. So we could experience wounding of various sorts and politics, climate change, and some more aggressive rhetoric. Hopefully, we can avoid uh, increases in violence in this country. Okay, now I'm going to start looking at specific charts. And what I'll be looking at is beginning with the new moon chart, which is an annular solar eclipse. And then we'll look at the chart for the first quarter moon, the full moon, which will be a lunar eclipse, and then the third quarter moon. Those are times throughout the month when things are a little less stable and a little bit more intense. And over here on the left, I've put in red those things which concern me the most. And these things which concern me the most are going to be things which generally last the entire month or make a particular impact of one sort or another. Okay, and I'm going to go first through the hard aspects, then the soft aspects, and then the inconjuncts. So what do I have here? Transing Pluto conjunct natal Pluto. Yes, this is going to be with us throughout the entire lunar month. We're still trying to rebirth our democracy and find our democratic footing as a democratic republic once again. We're still experiencing some threats. I think things are getting a little better, but we're still working through the process. Transiting lunar nodes square natal moon and Mercury. So here are the transiting nodes making squares to moon and Mercury. And that is, as I said, it's intensifying people's thoughts and feelings. So you may feel a little bit more on edge for the entire month, find it a little bit harder to relax. Things are going to be more intense. All right. This is an aspect that doesn't last all that long, but it's happening at the time of the solar eclipse. It's pretty strong at this time. And so this does set a tone for the entire month. Transiting Sun and Moon opposite natal Chiron. Okay. As I said, this could cause enlightenment in a few, uh, could cause healing if we approach things from a standpoint of compassion and kindness, but typically it tends to cause more wounding when the masses are involved. And in the case of a country like America, it is often political wounding and bloodletting that goes on. This can involve things going on in Congress right now. Will probably definitely involve things centered around Mr. Trump. And it could involve climate change as it did this past summer when we had a very near conjunction of transing Chiron with natal Chiron. So, and we could get violence and wounding from people who are very upset with what they perceive as happening with the government. We also have transiting Venus making a sesquiquadrate to natal Chiron. I don't have this highlighted in red. It's going to be it's kind of a short-lived aspect, but happening at the eclipse, it is going to add fuel to the fire. Uh, as I said, these sesquiquadrates, and the sesquiquadrates and the semisquares, those are turning points and breaking points, which can trigger things. And so it's sort of adding some fuel to the fire of this opposition of sun and moon to natal Chiron. So there's going to be a tone of wounding for the month, a tone of transformation. Now, when we go on to the first quarter moon, you can see we've got a lot of the same stuff going on. We still have transiting Pluto, conjunct natal Pluto, but this time uh, the moon is also involved. So that is going to um, stimulate, intensify this even more at this particular time. And the transing lunar nodes are still making squares to natal moon and natal Mercury, intensifying people's thoughts and their feelings. Now we're also going to have transiting Saturn, uh, making a sesquiquadrant with, let's see, natal Saturn and transiting Venus, making a semi-square to natal Saturn. I put inconjunct here, that's incorrect. Inconjunct is incorrect. So sorry about that, I'll change that later. It's instead making these minor aspects, as we call them, of a sesquiquadrant, a semi-square, which can be a turning point or breaking point. What this means is that people are going to likely get a little bit more frustrated with things. Now, I did not highlight this in red, but in passing, we have transiting Mars, making a square to the lunar nodes. So again, that is a point of intensification in Mars's aggression or violence. So there might be a little bit of uptick in aggression or violence at this point. And certainly people are going to be feeling a little bit more frustrated. Uh, Political battles, rebelliousness, strikes, even things like that may intensify a little bit since the transing moon will be involved in all of this now. And again, transits from the lunar nodes are intensifying the whole situation, making it a little bit harder for people to unwind. If we go on to the full moon, that is going to be a lunar eclipse. So again, being an eclipse, everything is multiplied times 10. Uh, these aspects will make a greater impact. And as I said before, we got a lot of the same stuff going on. Transing Pluto, conjunct natal Pluto, transing lunar nodes, square natal moon, and Mercury, and transing Saturn still making a sesquiquadrant with natal Saturn. We have some other little squares going on, transing Sun, square the natal lunar nodes that will further intensify things, and transing Venus, square uh, natal Mars. Uh, Things that people want are going to be in conflict with their drive toward assertiveness and aggression. With Venus and Mercury, people may be upset with the details about something. But again, this just shows ongoing frustrations related to this transit from transing Saturn to natal Saturn, ongoing intensification of thoughts and feelings, ongoing sense of rebelliousness, and trying to rebirth our democracy and get the ship of state back to where it should be. But there may still be going on some of this rebelliousness and strikes and political turmoil, etc. And when we get to the third quarter moon, again, same stuff is going on with Pluto, the lunar nodes, and transing Saturn. Uh, but we also have transiting Chiron opposite natal Saturn. It's not going to become exact opposition. Transing Chiron will move direct before that happens, but it's gotten within 2 degrees now of exact. And this is usually a time when we have to deal with our past actions, our past karma, and how we have treated others. Uh, so there may be some additional wounding or violence that occurs as a result of those past wrong turns that we have taken. Okay, so that are those are the stresses that we'll be facing this month. And as you can see, things are intensified. We have this ongoing existential threats to our democracy. We're still trying to get things back on track, and there are going to be these frustrations related to Saturn. Okay, now looking at the good stuff. As I said, we have some good stuff that'll be going on throughout the month. And I've highlighted the most important things that will be happening at the solar eclipse on October 14th. Transing Neptune, trine, sextile, natal Mercurian moon. That brings about more vision, more compassion to people. Transing Uranus, trine, natal Neptune. That also brings about more vision. Since transing Uranus is in Taurus, this might be innovative financial fixes to things, uh, which may bring about some financial compassion to people. Transing Saturn is going to be trine natal Venus. This is going to offset some of the frustrations that'll be going on that people may be experiencing. There may be some steady improvements or stabilization that will help people feel secure. Okay, those are the main things going on, those things which are going to last the longest. I've highlighted some other aspects, and if you want to, you can pause and take a look at those on your own. Now, when we get to the first quarter moon, again, these aspects continue, and transiting Jupiter sextile natal Sun, that is going to kick in. And Jupiter is growth and expansion, making a sextile to natal Sun. There are going to be some reasons for people to feel good. And since Taurus has to do with resources and finances, people may be getting some financial relief. As some of these strikes got settled, that's may make things better for workers in those professions. And the news today is that more student loans are being forgiven by President Biden's administration. So, stuff like that brings about good news and expansions in people's fortunes. When we get to the full moon on October 28th, that will be a lunar eclipse. And again, we have a lot of the same stuff going on. The beneficial transits from Neptune to Mercury and Moon, from Uranus to Neptune, from Saturn to Venus, and from Jupiter to the Sun that we just saw. In return, on this day, transiting Sun is going to be trine natal Jupiter. That only lasts for a day, but because it's happening at the lunar eclipse, it's going to have a little bit more intensity to it. That gives it more of a lasting impact. And transiting Moon is also going to be sextile natal Jupiter. So the good stuff becomes a little bit stronger by the time of the full moon. Because it's an eclipse, its impact will last and linger a little bit longer with us. Now, when we get to the third quarter moon on November 5th, again, the main good aspects are still there. Those beneficial transits from Neptune to Mercury and Moon, from Uranus to Neptune, from Saturn to Venus, and from Jupiter to Sun. So, even though we have some strong hard aspects to deal with in this lunar month from mid-October to mid-November, we also here in America have some very beneficial things that will be going on. Probably some things which will bring about growth instability and financial relief and implementation of uh, visions and increase in compassion. So it's not all going to be bad. And like I say, it's a toss salad. The good and the bad don't combine to make lukewarm water. They just sit right next to each other like a tossed salad. We got problems, we got good stuff going on all at the same time. Now, when it comes to the quincunxes and inconjuncts, those are the aspects which require adjustments to be made, and so they help bring about change. We don't have a whole lot of that going on. I do want to mention, though, that at the time of the solar eclipse on October 14th, we had transiting Jupiter, quincunx natal Saturn. This has been in effect for a little bit, but with Jupiter in Taurus and Saturn in Libra representing other people and regulation or restriction, Taurus representing finances, Jupiter expansion. This aspect has represented recent battles over the budget. And we concluded that battle successfully in the sense that we didn't shut down the government. Uh, at the time that happened recently when we were running out of money for spending, but our fix is only for 45 days. So our next deadline is in mid-November at the end of this lunar month. And so that will be one of the political battles we'll probably be going through in this month. But fortunately, uh, that quincunx from Jupiter to Saturn, it's fading, but other things could be there that can cause battles. Now, I've mentioned this already. We have transiting Uranus, semi-sextile natal Chiron. We're looking at first quarter moon now. And this means we've gotten within 2 degrees of, let's see, a semi-sextile between transiting Uranus, natal Chiron. Let me go back one slide. Okay, at the solar eclipse with Uranus at 22 degrees Taurus, Chiron at 22 degrees Aries. If we look at the minutes here, we weren't quite within that 2-degree orb, but by the time we get to uh, the first quarter moon, we're going to be within this 2-degree orb, and as we go on into the full moon, we'll be within 2 degrees of a semi-sextile from transiting Uranus to natal Mars. So that's where we're starting to activate this Mars Chiron midpoint. At its worst, this could be uh, wounding, violence, and something sudden happening. Could be sudden physical or financial violence that we experience. But since natal Mars and natal Chiron are sextile one another, uh, that helps to make beneficial outcomes more likely. We could still have negative results, but hopefully the sextile between Mars and Chiron in the natal chart will temper that. Okay, we get on to the full moon, the lunar eclipse on October 28th, and sure enough, transiting Uranus is making that semi-sextile to both natal Chiron and natal Mars, so we're starting to activate that midpoint. And those are going to be the inconjuncts that I see as the ones I'm mainly concerned about. I've highlighted some others here. If you wish, you can stop the video and examine those a little bit on your own, but they're going to be more short-lived. Okay, And as we go on to the uh, let's see, the third quarter moon on November 5th, we're going to still have transing Uranus making that semi-sextile to natal Chiron and to natal Mars, stimulating that particular midpoint. So we just have to keep an eye on this, see how things play out. At its best, events could stimulate sort of insights, enlightenment into people, uh, and bring about a growth or an interest in individual spirituality. That's one of those things that Chiron in Aries represents. And Aries is ruled by Mars, so the sextile from Mars just helps strengthen that. At its worst, though, it could be some uh, wounding, particularly wounding from violence and something sudden, and maybe something even financial that goes on. So let's see, I think that is probably my last slide here. Oh, no, I got one more. I got my wrap up. Thank goodness. Let me read through this. So this is my synopsis for the month. First, a near conjunction of transiting Pluto with natal Pluto that will last most of this fall indicates that we're still undergoing transformation and facing threats to our democracy. So far, we've seen this manifest as chaos in the House of Representatives and renewed threats or insinuations of violence from Trump and his supporters. Also, the recent waves of strikes reflect not only the rebelliousness of Pluto, but they also foreshadow what we may see when Pluto moves back into Aquarius in January and power continues to shift from individuals to the people. Also, an ongoing square from transing lunar nodes to natal moon and Mercury will likely intensify people's thoughts and feelings this month. Many may feel additional stress. Additionally, the sun and moon will be opposite natal Chiron at the time of the October 14th solar eclipse. This will activate the chances of wounding for the country this month, and wounding could come through political activity, climate change, Donald Trump's situation, or other mechanisms. Additionally, several midpoints involving either Mars, Pluto, or Chiron will be activated this month, and that could further exacerbate negative situations. However, if we focus on kindness to ourselves and to each other, then we can tilt the scales more toward healing and away from sorrow. There will also be several good aspects this month involving transiting Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn. Hence, there will be some who are both compassionate and inspired. We will experience some beneficial growth and expansion from Jupiter, and Saturn will provide some staid discipline and control in ways that will be beneficial. Okay, with transiting Jupiter and Taurus, Quinklunk's natal Saturn, and Libra during the solar eclipse, the need for a compromise solution on budget issues will likely continue to be in the news for a while. This aspect is going to be fading pretty quickly as we get into this month, but since it's happening at the new moon and solar eclipse, uh, things happening now are going to linger. They're going to stay with us for a while, even though the aspect fades. And consequently, uh, the battle over the budget, there's a good chance it's going to continue throughout the month. And finally, with transiting Uranus, semi-sextile both Chiron and Aries and Mars and Gemini, and with Chiron and Mars sextile one another in the natal chart, some may experience sudden breakthroughs and insight in individual spirituality this month. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what we should all be aiming towards. Otherwise, it could work out in terms of more aggression and more wounding. But remember that the planets, they just sort of set the tone but we make the choices. And if we choose to try and stay centered within ourselves, no matter how much turmoil there is outside of us, and if we make choices to react with things to things with kindness uh, to others and to ourselves, then we can make all the outcomes better and we can bring about healing instead of wounding. So that's what we should do. That's what we should encourage our leaders to do. Every time you are facing one of these stresses, try and stay centered and try and react with kindness. In dealing with our political leaders, encourage them to argue constructively and not destructively, encourage compromise on both sides, and encourage kindness and respect for the other on both sides of the aisle. Okay, and that's going to be it for this month. Let me stop sharing my screen, and I'm back. So, I hope that gives you an idea of what to expect. This certainly covers pretty well what I expect this month, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we say. There are definitely some stresses and tensions out there that we already see, but there are also solutions to these things. There are some good things that are happening and ways in which we can make things better if we just stay centered and if we promote kindness and compassion toward one another. If we do that, then we can successfully reinvent and rebuild our democracy, and things can turn out better instead of taking a turn for the worse. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you join me again for future videos. And for now, I'll just say so long and be well and be kind to yourself and to others. And that's it.